Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true. I'll go first.
Back when I was in my solo travel era, I went to Ireland. In all of my travels, I've learned to prioritize my safety, so that's what I did. I chose a hotel that you couldn't just walk into, you needed a key card to access the elevator, just like small things like that. So, my first night there, I went out, I explored the city a little bit, and then when I was done, I just came back. I got ready for bed, I locked the door, deadbolted it, all the things. And when I fell asleep facing the door with my back towards the window. Something woke me up in the middle of the night. It was a man's voice. Since I was already facing the door, I looked at it and noticed that the deadbolt was still on. It was still locked. Everything was exactly how I left it. But there was somehow a man in my room. I was frozen and I was just like, you know what? Maybe he'll just go away. I don't know why he's in here. Maybe he'll just take what he needs and like leaves. So I notice that this voice is getting closer and louder. And at that point, I snap out of it and I'm like, let me get up. So I try to roll over and can't. I can't roll over. I can't move at all. I can't scream. There's nothing I can do. I am absolutely paralyzed. Eventually, I'm able to move. And when I turn around, roll over, and look at the drapes where this person would have been standing, it looked like someone had taken all of their might and pushed the drapes out. And they were just moving in such a crazy way. You'd swear that someone just pushed them. You think that I'd call the front desk, tell them that my room was haunted, tell them that like what my experience was, switch rooms, do all those things, but I didn't. I stayed there for 4 more nights and I tried to Zach Baggins the shit out of that room. I played with the thermostat, I played with the air conditioner, I tried to, brush up against the drapes. I tried to push them myself. I tried to make them move in the way that I saw that night. And for 4 more nights, I couldn't do it.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
Okay, so I have a story and it does sound completely unbelievable, but I swear it's true. So, this is about the time that I saw a shadow person in my waking life. And I feel like you hear about them all the time that like people see them in their sleep, during sleep paralysis. And that sounds super scary, but I saw it in my waking life, completely like the middle of the day. So, this happened a while ago when I was like 18. And I'll set the scene for you a little bit. So, um, basically what was happening was like I was getting ready to go to my friend's house for a sleepover and her parents were out of town, so we were gonna have some people over, have some drinks. Like the vibes were immaculate, like my headspace great. I was very excited. And I'll set up like I'll let you, like this is how the layout of my house was. So like my bedroom mirror is here, and then like my door is right here, and then across the hall is my parents' door. And if both of our doors are open, I can look right into it and see into their room. So I'm facing the mirror, doing I think I was like straightening my hair and like listening to Nicki Minaj, like probably rapping along to Super Bass or something. And out of my peripheral, I see someone standing in my parents' room, and at this time nobody was home, just my brother was downstairs playing video games, and then my mom was out running errands and she was going to drive me to my friend's house once she got home. So I knew for a fact that nobody was home, or no one was home that would like fit the profile of what I saw. So I'm looking in the mirror doing my hair, and then I see someone, like a really tall person, standing in my parents' room out of the corner of my eye. So I turned to look, just half expecting nothing to be there, because like what would be there? So I'm like, like turn around, like turn and look, and there was like this 7 foot tall. So basically, it like looked like this giant man, maybe, but then like it had like horns that like went like they like curled inwards, like very like Maleficent style. Um, so I turn and look. Oh, and then the color, and like it wasn't like there were no features on it. It was just like black, like like a color of black that I've never seen in real life. It was like somebody cut a chunk of reality out in the shape of this. So yeah, I'm doing my hair, see that, turn and look at it, and then I like looked back at the mirror at myself, kind of like how like if you saw something unbelievable, you would like turn to your friend like, did you see that too? So I did that to myself in the mirror. And then I decided to look back because part of me was like, that's not real. I had a tiny hallucination. I don't know what I thought, but I was like, look back and it's still standing there. And then it like starts to run at me. Like it like is like so still, just like staring. And then it like goes to run at me, to which I then slam my bedroom door shut, turn my hair straightener off, throw everything I need into my sleepover bag, and then like just terrified, I'm like, holy shit, my brother's downstairs. My brother's downstairs. That thing is loose in the house. It's loose in the house. What if it's, or also slash, I was like a little scared it was gonna be like right at my door. But then at the same time, I'm like, that wasn't real. That can't be real. So I open my door, nothing's there, and then I just like run downstairs and I tell my brother that like we have to go because mom is going to drive me to my sleepover, to which he was like, why do I have to come? And I was just because I didn't tell anyone about that thing for like, I don't think I brought it up to my family for like at least 3 years, maybe longer. Like I might have been in my mid-20s by the time I brought it up to my parents and let my family know about it, because I was always kind of scared it would like know somehow. It would be like, oh, you're talking about me. So yeah, anyways, that's the time I saw a shadow person in real life, and it was really weird. Still don't know what that was. And like there were always kind of like weird things going on in that house, but like nothing like that. Like as far as I'm concerned, no one else saw something like that. And yeah, I don't have an explanation for it. It was the weirdest thing I've ever seen and experienced. So that's my scary story to contribute to this trend. Okay, thanks.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true. I'll go first. When I was
Okay, so I have a story that I feel like most people don't believe me whenever I share it. So I don't share it a lot, but I am going to share it with y'all just because of this TikTok. Okay, so about 2 years ago, I was with my boyfriend, and we were out late at night. It was like 11:30 something, whatever. We were on our way back to my house. But I wanted to stop at the gas station for some snacks. So we stop at the gas station, whatever. We go inside, we get our snacks, we come out. And there's this homeless lady that comes out to us, and she's like, please, like, I just need some money, whatever. My boyfriend is like, no, like, whatever, we're gonna go. And my kind little heart was like, oh my gosh, yeah, let me go to my car, I'll get a few bucks, whatever. So I go to my car, I get like $3 cash, just like 3 $1 bills, whatever. And I walk back up to her. And I didn't notice this before because I guess she had caught us as we were walking. But she had all these satanic symbols tatted everywhere. She had like 666, Satan, the pentagram, the star, like 666, Satan, had like all these, even on her face, like these demonic tattoos. She was just dripped out in it. But I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't notice that before. But anyway, whatever. I give her the $3. And as I'm handing her the money, like, you know when you hand someone money and they grab it from your hand? Well, she just didn't just grab the money from my hand. She like grabbed my hand. And I look at him, and I was kind of like weirded out, like, why is she touching my hand? I look up, like, at her eyes, because I'm like shorter, so I look up to most people. So like she's grabbing my hand, and I kind of like look up and look at her eyes, and they're black. Like they went black, as if like someone got Sharpie and colored in her eyes, like how you see it in the scary movies. You know what I'm talking about? Her eyes went full pitch black. So I let go real fast. I was like, keep my $3, whatever. I told my boyfriend, I'm like, let's go to the car. Like, let's just go. Like, I'm uncomfortable, whatever. So I was uneasy the whole car ride home, but whatever. We forgot about it, right? Like, okay, that was really scary. We forgot about it. And then that same night, my boyfriend spent the night, and we both woke up. And we had the exact same dream. And he was like, hey, this is really weird, but I had a dream that the lady at the gas station did something to you. And I was like, no way, because I had a dream she did something to me too. Like whether it was a hex, whether she cursed me, whatever you want to call it. My boyfriend and I had the exact same dream about her. He was like, so weird. We both had a dream about the lady at the gas station, and she did something to me. Anyway, super scary. We forgot about it again. I think about 2 or 3 weeks go by, and like we forgot about it, because also I have a lot of other stories to share with y'all, so it's kind of a normal for me, but not to this extreme. So anyway, I'm taking I was sleeping and I wake up. I wake up at like 9, 10 in the morning, so it's daylight. And across from my room, across from my bed, you can see my sister's bathroom, and that was the only part of the house that was dark because her lights were off. So I wake up to this demon in her bathroom. It's like a male demon. Like you can see his hair. Like it's a male. You can see the shoulders, like the prominent face. It's a black figure male with bright red beaming eyes. And I'm awake for this. So I was like, oh, hell no. Like, hell no. So I call my Nana because she is super Catholic. She's really in touch with all that fun stuff. So I call her and I tell her, I was like, hey, like I just woke up to this demon with red eyes. I've experienced sleep paralysis in my past before, plenty of times, but not once have I experienced a demon with red eyes. They're usually just black figures. So my Nana's like, okay, I'm going to talk to someone at the church for you. So my Nana, she goes and talks to someone at the church. She calls me back, I would say the next day or maybe a few hours later that night. And she's like, hey, by chance, did anyone put a hex on you? And I was like, no. And she was like, you're not beefing with anyone. Like, no one's mad at you. You didn't do anything you weren't supposed to. I was like, no, like, no one's mad at me. Like, I don't really have any enemies right now. Like, everything is cool. She's like, okay, well, that's weird because the lady at the church tells me that when you see a demon with red eyes, it can mean someone put something on you or manifested something into your life type thing. So anyway, that was weird. She told me a prayer to say, to get a rosary, whatever. She gave me some steps to do, and I did it. But then a few days later, I was like, 2 and 2 clicked. I was like, the lady at the gas station, she hexed me. Oh my gosh. So I caught my hand like, oh my gosh, it's this lady I met at the gas station. This lady I met at the gas station. And in the Bible, it says that demons like roam this earth like humans. Like they will disguise as humans. And I fully believe I came face to face with a real demon. And that demon had took advantage of my kind Christian heart because the demon knew I was going to give them the homeless person money. Like, I feel like they picked someone that was good. Like, you know, someone that was like going to give them money. And I did. And, yeah, so that's my story. Anyway, so that's my story of how I came face to face with the demon and how a random homeless demon lady at the gas station put a hex on me. And it lasted for like a month, and I had to do all these steps to get out of it and all that. But we're all good now, and love Jesus.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
I hope I'm not too late to add on to this, but this is one of my favorite scary stories to tell because it involves my family, and that never happens. But I have a couple from West Virginia. I went to school in West Virginia, so if you want to hear more, let me know. So I'm a Pisces. My birthday's February 28th, and last year on my birthday, my uncle who had stage 4 cancer passed away. We celebrated all day, and then at night is when I found out that he had passed. And I was obviously very sad, and we were kind of prepared for it, but still, nonetheless, very sad. After his passing, my dad was like, we're going to have him cremated. And that was honestly kind of surprising. But we decided to do it, and we kept his ashes and like the urn in our kitchen until the ceremony, which was also a little bizarre. My parents are very spiritual people. But also, like my friends were like, you keep him in your kitchen, and I was like, yeah, it's fine, he's fine, he's family, he's in there. And he loved to like party, he loved to like have a little drinky drink. And in our kitchen is a bar, and it's usually stocked with like white wine and cheap champagne, usually Andre brand champagne. My uncle's name is Andre. So a few days after he had been in our kitchen, I pour myself a glass of champagne, and I turned to him and I'm like, cheers to you. And this is probably around 11 or midnight. And I go downstairs to my room. So my house is separated by 2 floors. On the first floor is like the main floor. It's where the living room, kitchen, office, my parents' bedroom, like whatever. The bottom floor is like another whole apartment. It's a house, but like it's a whole like new flat. Like we have another living room, another kitchen, my room, which has 2 French doors with no windows. So they close like this, but it doesn't lock, so you can like hear through it. Laundry room, bathroom, and a sunroom. So that's the downstairs, and that's where I stay. So I take my glass of champagne and I go downstairs, drink it, think nothing of it. I watch some TV and I fall asleep. A few hours later, I hear my mom yelling for me at the top of the stairs. It's probably like 3 or 4 a.m. at this point, and I just hear her say, "Can you come to the kitchen real quick?" And I'm like still kind of eyes closed, like, what do you possibly need at the kitchen? What do you need from me at like 3 or 4 a.m.? Why do I need to come to the kitchen? And so I'm kind of like, what? Like, huh? What do you need? It's silent for a bit. I hear her walk down the steps. So you have to open a door to get down to the basement, and you have to walk down a series of 12 steps. And then it's probably like another like 10 steps to get to my room. I hear her walk like halfway down the steps, after the silence. And then she goes, "Can you come to the kitchen?" And it's not the most polite answer that I gave. I was like, "What do you need?" I'm like, I'm really exhausted. I'm like, "What do you need?" Again, silence. I hear her walk back upstairs, like walk back up like a few steps. She never closes the door. We always close the door. We have a dog. We have an elderly dog upstairs. And so she always closes the door, but she didn't. And I'm waiting to hear if she needs anything else. Dead silence for a very long time. So I just go back to sleep. In the morning, I go upstairs and I talk to my mom. Actually, no, I think I called her to come downstairs. And I was like, what did you need last night? Like, you called me to come to the kitchen super late. Like, what was going on? She was like, I didn't. No, I didn't. What do you mean? What do you mean? No, you didn't. I was like, yes, you did. You called me to come to the kitchen twice. And I asked what was going on. You never responded. And you just walked away. She was like, I was asleep the entire night. Like, this is one of the few nights I actually slept the entire night. Our whole family is like kind of insomniac, except for my dad. He can sleep through anything. So the fact that my mom slept through the entire night was bizarre. And also the fact that she's like, it wasn't me, was bizarre because I specifically heard her voice. If I had heard anyone else's voice, I would have been terrified. I knew it wasn't my dad. He's going to sleep the entire night. So the fact that I heard her voice, I almost did it because that's my mom. That's my girl. Like, I would have been upstairs in that kitchen if she really needed me. Um, so that was really weird. And I told her last night I toasted Andre before I went to bed. And like I said, they're not really like spiritual or whatever, but she was like, that's really weird. I don't like this story. Like, don't tell your dad. Like, okay. But it was, I don't know what that was. Something that sounded exactly like her called me to come upstairs and then just disappeared. I choose to believe that it was likely Andre just like kind of toasting me back. But that was also so strange. And I definitely believe if I had heard his voice, I would have freaked out. So I kind of understand why it wasn't, you know, anyone else's voice. But what was going on? Does anyone, any other spiritual people, like, let me know in the comments if you have an idea what's going on. Because it felt like, it was definitely like a scary experience, but it also, in hindsight, doesn't feel like evil or negative. I don't know. I also have to say that in my parents' house, I've had a couple experiences where I have woken up from a dream just to wake up from a dream again. Like, I'll be asleep and then my mom will come into my room and sit on my bed and like, you know, like pat my leg or something and just like talk to me, and I'll talk to her back for a little bit and then she'll leave and then I will wake up and I'll like look at my phone and I'll have like a text from my mom or something, but she has not come downstairs. Like, we have not had a conversation. That's happened multiple times when I'm in my room in the basement. Which is, it's quite cute down there. So like, it's not like really scary. At night it is pitch black. I will say that. It is absolutely dark. Dark. Like, so it is a little, it's a little creepy at times. I've just gotten used to it. Yeah, so that's my go-to story for now. But if you want to hear some about West Virginia, let me know, because I know that's kind of popular on here, and I do have some stories to tell. So, yeah.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
The story I want to tell is when I was like 8, it was 2002. I was in my mom's friend's wedding as a flower girl, and this wedding was in Hot Springs, Arkansas. And we were staying at like a very prominent old hotel. So it was like my parents, myself, my 2 younger siblings, and my grandparents. We were all going to this wedding. And on the day of check-in, I went in with my mom and we were in the lobby. And this little girl with red hair came up to me and asked me if I wanted to play. And I felt really, really uneasy and like trepidatious about this girl, which like I never got with other kids, as a kid. So I kind of remember just like brushing her off a little bit because I just got like a weird feeling from her and was like, oh, like I can't play, like, sorry, like blah, blah, blah. And she was like, okay, and like went away. Then, like, probably like a day or two later, I was in the hotel room with my younger siblings and my grandparents, and there was a knock at the door, and so I went and opened it. I don't know why. But she was there. And actually, it's kind of dawning on me why it was probably me who opened the door, but we'll get to that later. But so I went and opened the door, and this little girl with the red hair was there, and then she was also there with like a 13-year-old boy and like another preteen. And I was like, hey, and she was like, hey, like, do you want to come see where we live? And in my like 8-year-old brain, I was trying to make it make sense. I was like, oh, this is an old hotel. There's probably an orphanage here too. Like, that was my logic at the time. Just trying to make it make sense. So, I was like, sure. And we were on the 8th floor at the end of the hall, and there was a staircase, like right there. And so we start going up the staircase, and obviously, like, there's signs on the door, like, don't enter, staff only, blah, blah, blah. It's trespassing. And it was going up to like an attic, and I thought it was weird that they would like make kids live in the attic. But again, I was like trying to make it make sense as like a child and my understanding of the world. It was very narrow. But so as the door's like about to crack open, my grandma pops out of the hotel room and is like not happy and is like, Claire, like, you can't be up there. What are you doing? Come back here. Like, get down from there. So I turned to the kids. I'm like, hey, I'm sorry. I can't play. And they're like, okay. And so I go back. And then the day we're checking out, there's a lot of people in the lobby. It's the end of a wedding. Everyone's saying their goodbyes. And the little girl comes back up to me. She was like, hey, do you want to play? And so I turned to my mom. She's talking to somebody. And I was like, hey, Mom, like, can I go play with so-and-so or the little girl? I never knew her name. Or maybe I did, and I just don't remember. I don't know. But anyway, and she was just, like, really dismissive. Which, like, wasn't typical and, like, isn't typical. Like, she's always been somebody who, like, gives a definitive answer. So the fact that my mom was just like, you know, whatever, blah, 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 like, kind of just brushing me off didn't make sense. You know, even though she was, like, in a conversation with somebody, like, still, she would have, like, turned around and been like, no, you can't play. Or, like, sure, go play. So that was odd to me. So I turned back around to the girl, and I was like, I'm sorry, like, I can't play. She was like, okay. And then that was it. And for a really long time, that is all I remembered. Well, I'd, like, talked about it with, like, my mom and my grandma as, like, when I was older, like, oh, like, do you remember this little girl who kept asking me to play, like, at the wedding? And they don't remember a little girl. And, like, both of them have decent memories. And, like, you could chalk it up to, like, why would they remember this little girl who kept asking you to play? Those are the kind of details that they remember. And no one remembers seeing this girl except for me. And something my mom also remembered about that trip was that my little sister would cry at nothing. And that wasn't really her MO. But she would just, like, get freaked out and start crying. Oh, and nothing would be there. And, like, nothing would really trigger it. And so my mom noted that. So I always kind of chalked it up to just, like, this, oh, funny little story, probably a little ghost, whatever. And then I got a little bit more curious. Like, a couple years ago, I was, like, thinking about this story, and I was like, oh, I have the internet now. Like, I can look up and see, like, this hotel and if anyone else has a similar story. And so I looked up the hotel, don't remember the name, but, like, Al Capone stayed there, and, like, a bunch of presidents and, like, athletes. Like, it's a very well-known hotel. It burned down, like, the original one burned down, and they rebuilt it, like, again, still a long time ago, like the 1800s or, like, early 1900s. I don't know. I'd have to look it up. But so I got into, like, oh, is it haunted? And, like, yeah, people have seen this little girl before. And they've also seen, like, a woman in a white dress. And when I read that, like, a very vivid memory came back that I had not thought about since the day it happened. But it was the day we were leaving again. All of us were in the minivan. I was in the far, far back. You know, I was in the way, way back. And we're sitting, like, in the parking lot getting ready to leave. And I look out my window, and like, at the top of one of the pillars of this hotel was a woman in white, like, levitating at 45 degrees off one of the pillars, like, just midair. And she was seething. She was so angry, like, probably the purest form of evil I've ever experienced. And I remember being really, really scared, because I believed she was angry with me that she didn't get me. And I just had to, like, I just sat in the back and didn't say anything, because I didn't want to be like, there's someone floating off of the hotel. And so I just sat in the back and was like, it's fine. She can't get you. We're leaving. We're out of here. You know, she's not going to get you. And, like, as we drove away, I felt, like, so much better. You know, because, like, what you going to do? But I genuinely believe, like, her and the little girl are the same entity. And I don't know what would have happened to me if I would have gone up into that attic. Like, if my grandma didn't come out of the hotel room and tell me to come back down.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
So a few months ago now, it was a Friday night and I was fast asleep. It was about 1 o'clock in the morning and I hear the door code start being entered. It's this beeping noise. So I roll over and I say to my husband, Chris, I think someone's trying to break into the house. He runs down the hallway, looks over the stairs at the front door, and he calls out, there's no one there. At that point, we hear the front door go keypad deactivated, which means that the code has been entered incorrectly too many times. So he comes back to the bedroom and we look on the app that tracks everything that's happened on the front door. And you can clearly see that someone has entered the code incorrectly 3 times, which shuts it down. So I say, okay, quickly, let's have a look at the security cameras, and we have one of those like Ring doorbells. We get it open. No one has been in our front yard. The sensor lights didn't come on. There was no one there, but someone has definitely tried to enter our keypad incorrectly 3 times and has shut the front door down. Anyway, we try not to think about it too much, get on with our day the next day. You know, these things happen. Then the next night, Saturday night, around the same time, I'm talking about 1 o'clock in the morning, I am fast asleep and I hear my husband's phone ringing on speaker. And I roll over and I say, Chris, who on earth are you calling? It's 1 o'clock in the morning. And he gets up his phone. He goes, Annie, I'm not calling anyone. Like, the screen's dead. It was black. He couldn't do anything to it, but it was calling someone on speaker. And it rings and it rings and it eventually gets to this person's voicemail. And it's, you know, the standard, can't come to the phone right now, leave a message, I'll get back to you. But I'd never heard this person's name before. So I said to my husband, Chris, like, who was that? Like, I've never heard, who is it? And he goes, that's my old boss who died 2 years ago.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
Hi, my name is Katie. I have never done a TikTok before. Probably won't ever again. This trend is meant for me and my haunted house, which I'm sitting in right now, so don't get mad. Yeah, so my husband and I moved into this house, I want to say like 4 years ago. We just re-signed for the 4th time. And we had been here for like a week at most, and things had been like a little bit weird, but I've always like kind of had weird experiences in places that I've lived, so it wasn't anything strange or like out of the ordinary. And my husband has always been like a huge skeptic, so he was like, this is fine, whatever. This house is like over 100 years old. I think it was built like in the late 1800s, so you know, it comes with the territory. But the story that I want to tell is like the most insane thing that has ever happened to me. My husband and I were asleep in bed, and of course it was like 3:30 in the morning, and our doorbell started going off in sets of 3, like ding, 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 and then it would be quiet for like an extended period of time, like 3 to 5 minutes. And the first time it went off, I was like, okay, maybe I dreamt that, and then it happened again. And so I like pushed my husband awake and I was like, hey, did you hear that? And he was like, yeah, we're ignoring it. So it just like kept happening, and it started happening like more frequently, with like smaller amounts of time in between. So eventually I was like, I'm gonna go look. Like, we live in the city, maybe somebody is ringing it, they need help, whatever. Like, we're in a very populated area. I just kind of assumed that like it was a person. So we live on the first floor, and when you look out the window of our front door, you can see straight to the front because it's all glass. So I like peeked through the little slitted blinds and there was nobody there. So I was like, okay, maybe they moved on to the next house, whatevs. So I went back into the bedroom, and the second that I closed the door to the bedroom, it started going off again. And at this point I was getting irritated because I was like, I want to go to bed. I want to be asleep. So I'll show you because it's hard to explain otherwise. Our window in the front room like looks directly out onto our porch, and the doorbell is like right around this corner right here. So like if somebody's ringing the doorbell, I should be able to see them if I open up this window. So I was getting irritated, and I was like, you know what, whatever. And I flung this curtain back, and the second that I did that, it started going off incessantly, like so needless to say, We like disconnected our doorbell and have not connected it since. We've lived for 4 years without a doorbell. Um, yeah, so that's the craziest thing that's happened to me in this house. I have like there have been other things that have happened. Um, None of them that violent. I mean, that's not violent, but like crazy. Um, yeah, I did wake up to a man like standing over my bed once, a ghost man. So that's also a fun story. But yeah, thanks for listening. Bye.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely.
If you scare easily, go ahead and exit right now. When my grandmother was in hospice, she hospiced under the care of my mom and my aunt in this home. As it got closer to the end, my grandma would kind of swat and be like, "Do you see them? Do you see them? They're just flying all around me. They're flying all around me." She would also say that she sees a man in the corner. One day, my mother was in the bathroom doing her hair and my aunt was going to the store. While my mom was in the bathroom doing her hair, she felt a huge gust of wind, as if like somebody was like walking by and walking through our hallway, and they're walking fast and like with a purpose, like startled my mom. Then she peeked outside the door and she's calling for my aunt. She's like, "Pat, is that you?" And it wasn't my aunt. And then it happened again and she sees somebody like walking by, and my mom was like, what the heck is going on? My mom just gets this really weird feeling and she goes into my grandma's room and she's like, "Hey mom, are you okay?" And my grandma was like, "Did you see him?" And my mom was like, "Yeah mom, I saw him." She starts speaking to it, starts saying, "Hey, I think I know who you are. We're not ready for her to go." And my mom said that it was a cloaked figure, like a pale cloaked figure with like a button up shirt with a high collar, like ruffled high collar up to here, ruffles on the sleeves, and like a hat that Abraham Lincoln used to wear, like a top hat. Like a few days passed. My grandma is watching Judge Judy because that's what my grandma loved Judge Judy. And my mom is in there and Judge Judy had just gone off, and my mom goes in there and she's like, "Hey mommy." Asked my grandma if she wants to watch the Today Show now because Gladys Knight and the Pips are going to be performing. And my mom has her back turned to my grandma, and my grandma's back here laying down. And my mom says, she's like, "Hey mom, do you want to watch the Today Show? Gladys Knight and the Pips are on." And my grandma said, "No, he's here." And my mom says, "Who's here, mom?" And when my mom turned around, my grandma had passed. Like my grandma was dead. She was gone. She said, "No, he's here." And she was gone. It was the angel of death. Angel of death came and took her soul. Yeah, he's here. Yeah.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
So when I was about 14, I went to go visit my grandma in Florida. Florida has always been a spiritual place for me ever since I started visiting there when I was like 12 or so. So honestly, if anywhere this were to happen, it would be Florida. At this time of my life, I was really getting into Wicca and like empathy and the clairs and psychic abilities in general. I was really starting to understand that humans have the access to psychic abilities, and this really fascinated my 14-year-old brain. My grandma's house was always a little bit creepy to me. She just moved to a new house in Florida this year, and I was sort of like, okay, it's a little weird in here, but whatever, it's probably just my nerves. I would hear weird sounds. Sometimes I felt like I was hearing footsteps, but I would talk to my grandma the next day and she said nobody went over to that side of the house in the night. I would sometimes feel like I could see figures out of the corner of my eye, but I just played it all off as it was just me. The final straw was when I woke up in the middle of the night one night. Bear in mind, it was 3 a.m. and ever since I was a little kid, I've always been super antsy about being awake at this time because the energy is just so much. I was sharing a bed with my sister in my grandma's house in Florida, and she was fast asleep snoring. I looked over to the left to like the bedside table that was by her side of the bed, and the rosary that normally was like hanging off of the lamp on that side started to sway left and right. And I remember I was like, okay, there's no fan on. The AC isn't blowing that strongly. Like, what is going on? And remember, it's 3 a.m., so I'm literally already pissing my pants. Then I heard footsteps in the hallway so clearly, and the closet door of that room started to make like a sound. It was like a sort of like a creaking sound, like something was moving in it, but not like moving around a lot, like something was just standing there and it was creaking because of the weight on the floorboard, if that makes any sense. I looked back over to the moving rosary because I was so freaked out and I was about to go turn on the lights. And literally, as I was like, okay, I'm turning on the lights, a candle turned on that was on that same like nightstand. It had like a lamp, a picture, a candles, the rosary, some other stuff. The candle created a flame. It turned on. Candles don't turn on, so I absolutely started to lose my shit. My first instinct was to wake up my sister, even though she was a lot younger than me, just to see if she also saw what I was seeing. As I started to wake up my sister, the candle went back out. Excuse me? Moral of the story, I turned on the lights. I basically stayed up until the next day. I told my grandma, and she said that she had collected a bunch of antique tea kettles from an estate sale, and that ever since she got them, she did notice some weird things were happening. My grandma is super into the spiritual world and Christian, and honestly, I just would have liked a warning. So I would like to hear your ghost story now as well, and I have plenty of others if you'd like to hear them.
Me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
I have been waiting for this one. So you already know how my house burned down. Well, that house that burned was 1,000,000% haunted. Now, I'm only going to share a few of the haunting instances because there's so much that happened there, but let me know if y'all want more. So one of the creepiest to me that constantly happened was the man at the table. In my old kitchen, there were 2 entrances, and out the second entrance, there was a table. And multiple times when I was in the kitchen at night, I would see a man out of the corner of my eye, like at the head of that table. It was very off because before I would see him, I would feel like I was being watched. And I would perfectly see him like in the corner of my eye. When I looked, there's nobody there. It always happened at the same table, at the same chair, everything. It was very off. And what makes this even more weird is there was a few times when I had my dog in the kitchen with me and she would be staring at the corner of the kitchen. I actually took a photo one time after she started staring. So this is it. This is the corner she would always stare at. She would just stare kind of at this door, and right off camera, like to that side, is the table that I would always see the man sitting at. Now, after she did this, she would kind of pace around as if she was uncomfortable and then go back to staring with her ears perked up. There's also another very, very weird incident that happened. So right above this kitchen was the party room. And one summer, me and one of my friends were playing Minecraft in the party room. It was like really, really late. It was 4 or 5 a.m. Anyways, we were the only 2 people in the house at the time. Everyone else was gone. And while we're playing, we hear this massive crash below us. Now, I was really, really freaked out. I thought someone had broken in. So after the crash, we're just sitting up in the game room like, what the heck just happened? And after we sit there and it's completely silent for a while, I decided to go downstairs and check out what exactly just happened. And when I went downstairs, there was not a single thing out of place. Nothing was broken, nothing had fallen over, and we even checked multiple times the next day too, when it was fully bright outside, and there was nothing. The last story I'll share is actually the last weird thing that happened with this house. So a few days after the fire, we were going through the rubble of the house. And let me tell y'all, the entire house was like eviscerated from this fire. Barely anything survived. But one thing that not only survived, but was in perfectly mint condition was this Funko Pop from Lord of the Rings. If you know who this is, it's Balrog, and he is a fire demon. And what's so strange about him surviving is that my mom had the entire Lord of the Rings Funko Pop collection. She was a huge fan of it. There was not a single other Funko Pop that survived the fire except for this one, and as you can see, he survived in mint condition. Like, the second I found him, I got this horrible feeling in my stomach. Like, I was kind of shocked that out of everything that could have survived, Balrog the Demon of Fire was one of them that did. Anyways, let me know if y'all want more ghost stories from my house, because I have quite a few.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true. I'll go first.
Okay, so this happened in 2009, and I had either just graduated high school or I was about to. And my boyfriend was living with us at the time, and we were in our bedroom, and my mother and her boyfriend at the time would get into very loud, like angry fights. So when that would happen, we would usually leave the house when it would start getting uncomfortable. So this particular night, they were screaming at each other, and we left out the back door. So the way that our house is set up, when you walk into the front door, you're in the living room, and there's a hallway that to the left is the bedrooms, and to the right is the bathroom and the kitchen where the back door is. So while they were fighting, we snuck through the hallway and went out the back door. And we were gone for a good 45 minutes, maybe an hour. And when we walked through the door, they were staring at us like eyes wide, and they looked scared, and we're like, what's going on? Like, we had left before and come back, and it was never a big deal. And they asked us, well, how long have you been gone for? We said, I don't know, like 45 minutes, an hour maybe. And they looked even more shocked. So come to find out, they said that a few minutes before, about 15 minutes, we had apparently walked through the front door. We're giving them dirty looks. They were assuming because they were being too loud with their fight. And we looked angry, walked to the hallway into our bedroom, and slammed the door shut. And this still gives me goosebumps to this day because we were like, what the actual, what is going on? So we walked to the hallway and looked, and the bedroom door that we had left open when we left was completely shut. So I was scared, and my boyfriend at the time, of course, was scared too, but he decided to open the door. And as soon as he opened the door, it was obvious that the window was wide open, which we never left the window open. And the room was really cold. And mind you, like I said, it was around graduation time, so I remember it was really hot outside. And the AC didn't really reach my bedroom, so it was usually a little bit warm, but this night it was ice cold. And I was so freaked out that I didn't want to sleep in that bedroom that night. So we ended up sleeping in the living room. And it still freaks me out to this day because I have other stories. I grew up in New Mexico. There's a lot of, witchcraft stories I have, and, S Walker encounters, things like that. And this was the first time I had heard about, any type of doppelganger situation. But either way, super scary to this day.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
People that I know are definitely going to see this, and it's going to be so embarrassing because I am going to cry, and it's on the internet, and that's so cringe, and I know. But what I'm about to say is a completely true story. I'm going to change out some identifiable information because HIPAA. It involves a nursing story. So aside from like what happened, all the like details just, they're made up. Okay. So I was on orientation. I'm a new grad in the ICU. I am now off orientation, but this happened while I was on orientation. Anyway, so we have this guy, I'm going to call him Jason. He's a 40 to 60-year-old man. So like kind of young, has kids, married, whatever. Very, very sick. I had him for truly like the whole time that I was pretty much on orientation. And he, really sick, intubated, CRRT. I learned so much from him, which I will forever be grateful for. Truly learned so much. So thank you for that. Nearing the end of his stay, he all of a sudden turned this huge left corner, and I was like, oh my gosh, did I heal him? Woohoo! Got him extubated, got him off CRT. I got to hear his voice, got him sitting up on the edge of the bed. Like, it was, I think, one of the best days of my whole life. So that was earlier in the week, and had a couple days off. I was feeling so good. And I come back to work, and it was a night shift. And, I'm like, I don't know, excited to see what new patient I was going to get, what else I was going to learn. And they say, hey, Bailey, and my preceptor, y'all got to get out on the floor. You have Jason back. And I was like, what? Because again, I'm on orientation. So like, I should be getting like, I was like, he's fixed. Like, what do we, like fixed for the ICU, but I was like, what do we mean? Like, why am I getting him back? And they're like, oh, we're actually coding him. What? So we run down there, and sure enough, we're coding him. He's back on CRT, back to being intubated, and I am just devastated. Oh my God, was I devastated. So we walk in and we just start working. It wasn't even, I guess it was like right at 7 p.m. We didn't get report because again, I'd had this patient for weeks. And so I knew, I was like, but what happened? And it turns out it happened. It doesn't matter. Anyway, some other things happen. And we go in at 7 p.m. I don't walk out of that room until 3 a.m. Like 3 a.m. It was crazy. Blood, sweat, and tears. And 3 a.m. is whenever we came out. We're just like, there is nothing more. There is nothing more that we can do. And I was broken. Okay, so come out. 7:32 a.m. and Jason passes, and it was devastating. And and the ICU can just be like tough, and losing anybody is tough. This one has stick with me and will stick with me forever. And I promise I'm getting to the ghost story, I promise. Okay, so he passes, and I just want to stay to do postmortem care because for me that's such like it gives me closure. I can get them all cleaned up and make sure that they're like as comfortable as possible. Like it's just the last little bit that like I can do, and it helps me. Okay, but I can't because it was so sudden, and so we were giving family time to like come and blah blah blah. Okay, and I was coming back that night, so I couldn't just like stay. Like I have to come back. I have to go to bed. I have to like be ready to go for the next day, which is so challenging. Okay, so that happens, and I am so not okay. I am so not okay, but I have to be okay because it's the ICU and I'm new and blah, 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 blah. Okay, so months goes by from that moment, and from that time on, it was weekly. It was turning into like an every other day situation, whether I was working or not. I was having panic attacks. I was having nightmares. I was physically so unwell. One particular night, I'm coming in for my shift. I'm off orientation. I'm on my own. I've been practicing on my own for a couple months at this point, and I just feel terrible. I'm still having panic attacks. Before this particular shift, I'm having a panic attack in the car in the parking lot of the hospital. And I was just sitting there and I was like, I'm not strong enough. I can't do this. Maybe this isn't for me. Maybe I was kidding myself. Major imposter syndrome, but panic attack nonetheless. Shaking, crying, hysterical. And I thought, okay, just don't clock in and go quit. Like if you really can't handle it, go quit. Walk up to the floor. I'm like, no, I've breathed, I've composed myself, clock in. So I'm there, I'm getting my patients. Like we're having a shift. And I go on and I get my patient assignment, great assignment, we're chilling. This one patient that I got, I don't think we need a name for him. Anywho, he was there for alcohol withdrawal. Beginning stages, but beginning to hallucinate if you haven't worked with or if you're unfamiliar with that. So they start to hallucinate. He was seeing people in the room. He was seeing things crawling on the wall, but like nothing scary because sometimes they can be really scary and I feel really bad for that. But his were fine. And he was also very trusting of me. Like he was like, hey, I've been through this before. I know I hallucinate. It helps me if you can help reorient me. Anytime you walk in the room, just, I trust you. I know who you are. I was like, sweet. So we're going through the night. Everything's groovy. I'm able to get him off of hallucinations. He'll be like, this is there. And I'm like, and he's like, do you see that? And I'm like, no, like, I don't see that. Or, hey, I have a concern about this. And I would go check. And I'm like, no, like, I'm not seeing that. But do you feel safe? Are you okay? He's like, yep, I'm good. I trust you. Again, we're chilling. Several hours into the shift, all of a sudden I'm looking at the monitor, super tacky. He turns on his light, like from his bed or whatever. And I'm like, whoa, that's so strange. So I fly in the room. I'm like, maybe, hallucinations getting to him. I'm like, hey, what's up? And he's agitated. Oh my God. He was so upset with me. And he was like, oh my gosh. And I was like, whoa. I was like, hey, like, what's up? I was like, because, sometimes that happens and no big deal. We roll with it. And so I'm trying to help reorient him. And all of a sudden he goes, Jason's in the corner. Sir, Jason? I'm like, okay. Well, because then I didn't think that up at first, but I go, who's Jason? And he goes, that guy that died in here. And goes on. He's like, this is where his spouse was. This is what you did. This is what you guys talked about. This is music that you played for him. This is what he liked to do. And he's in the corner and he wants to talk to you. And I'm so mad that you're not talking to him. So I hightail it out of that room. I'm like, oh my God, he's right. And he knew his name. And I'm like, what room am I in? I was in his room. In his room. So I run out of the room. I'm freaking out. And I'm like, no one's going to believe me. Everybody's gonna think I'm crazy, that I've like lost my mind. So I run up to tell my charge. I'm sobbing. She starts kind of getting emotional, and she's been a nurse for 25 years. So she was like, whoa, I've never heard anything like this. Anyway, I go back in the room and I was like, okay, what does Jason want to tell me? Because I can't see him. And he calmly tells me, again, I just had a panic attack. And the man in the bed that's hallucinating says, Jason's in the room, he's been in here, and he's wanted to talk to you all night, and he wanted to say that he has moved on, and that you need to too. And I hadn't moved on. I hadn't, obviously. And I just started crying, and I just said, okay, and thank you. And he said, no, thank you. And I was like, oh, what did I do? And he said, no, that's what Jason wanted me to tell you. He wanted me to tell you thank you. And oh my God. Since then, I haven't had any panic attacks. I felt so much more confident in the ICU and in my skill. And I carry him with me everywhere. I think about him all the time, and his family, and just how beautiful of a person he was. But I truly learned so much from him. He was an amazing person that I just learned so much about how to be a nurse and how to care for people in really shitty situations. So, cheers to Jason. But yeah, that's my ghost story. My past patient haunting another patient to tell me that I needed to get my stuff together and move on. So anyway, that's my story. Thanks for listening.